Hey everybody, Pupsker here, and today in Warframe, we're going to talk about what are the best Warframe Incarnon Genesis weapons from every week in Duviri Paradox. If you didn't know, there's a total of 6 weeks in total, right? Twitch chat agrees, they know what's up. If we take a look right here, we can see that week 1 has these weapons, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6. These are all true. These are all of the Incarnon Genesis weapons Warframe has in the game right now. And shout out to the Warframe wiki for always having these sus as possible, like these hilarious ads every single time, okay? They're like Rule 34, but just safe for work enough so that it can be okay on an ad. Good job, Warframe wiki. Good job. Shout out to that. Shout out to that. So let's go over the best Incarnons out of every week. This is Incarnon week 1, right? So this is the Bratton, the Leto, the Skana, the Paris, and the Kunai Incarnon, right? Technically, I just found these pictures and stuff off Reddit and like grabbed them wherever, right? Because, you know, they're the pictures here. I didn't remember to take a picture of week 1, right? A little unfortunate, but it is what it is. From what I see, everyone really likes most of the weapons on this week. The kunai are explosive, right? Little homing missiles. People really seem to enjoy that one a lot. So it's definitely not that bad. Hey, thank you for the Prime sub over on Twitch. Appreciate it. Tech Nerd Media. You have the Leto, which was also really good. Paris, people really enjoyed. Bratton, people liked as well. Skana was honestly, I think, one of the least popular choices week 1 because it was just kind of an upgraded, stronger melee. But I think for the Steel Path circuit, week 1, everything was actually pretty strong. I would probably go for like Bratton, Kunai, and then Lato, Paris, and probably grab the Skana last, right? That's what I would say. Put the God Mode Kunai ribbon on. Whew, definitely could. So that's what I would say for week 1. You'd want to go Kunai Bratton or Bratton Kunai, whichever you prefer. Then you'd probably want to go Paris Leto. And then you'd want to go Skana at the very end. That being said, pick whatever weapon you want, pick whatever you like. Realistically, if you play Warframe for long enough, it should be fine. Everything is very strong once it gets an Incarnon form, and they are actually updating and possibly swapping around some Incarnon stuff too, so things could even get upgraded more. I know for the hate, they're making it so that you don't get AoE CC'd when you use the ability there, but for week 1, it was at least pretty simple of like, these ones are great, people also like these, and then the Skana melee was meh. For week 2 though, we have the Bow Incarnon, we have the Latrin Incarnon, we have the Furis Incarnon, we have the Furex Incarnon, and the Furex Wraith, right? And then we have the Strun Incarnon. So this was one of those weeks where I think it was kind of like meh. If I recall correctly, people didn't really love a ton of the weapons this week. I think certain ones were good, like the Furis I think people liked, and the melees are better melees with little buffs, but I think the Incarnon adapters for week 2 weren't as good as they could be. I would probably still pick maybe the Furis in the Strun or the Latrin in the Strun for week 1, and then go for the non-melee and a melee, and then go for the melee for the final week, right? But 100%, I didn't see people like the melees too much. Maybe the bow was preferred over Furex, but if you do have like the Furex Wraith, you like those a lot, go for it. But I would still choose the guns. Furis, a Furis. If you have the Prime variant, I would go for the Prime or the stronger variant weapons you have first. And then from there, I would grab things that you have like the weaker variants on. But the first 2 weeks of Incarnon weapons, while they were good weapons, you know, they could have been stronger or cooler, right? But I would still probably go Furis Strun and then like Latrin Bow and then the Furex last, personally. But you can swap the bow and the Furex if depending on what you like. Same with the guns. That's the nice thing about the Incarnon Genesis. As long as something's strong, that's all that matters. Incarnon Genesis week 3. A lot of these were pretty good no matter how you slice it, right? The Boltor and the Lex maybe weren't the best. People really did think the Ceramic Dagger was really strong. And if I recall correctly, the Bronco was actually pretty hype because it's It's a pretty interesting shotgun, right? Of course, I'm curious what everyone thinks about these, so remember to let me know about what you think the best weapons are for every week, which ones you prefer for every week and why. I myself haven't bothered making most of the Incarnon weapons because I have too many other games that I have to play right now, right? I have Diablo, Final Fantasy coming up. So it is what it is, right? I chose the Lex and the Boltor. I think the Lex is pretty decent, but I don't think the Boltor is as good as people would like it. So for this one, I'd probably choose something like Bronco Ceramic Dagger for week 1. Week 2, I think I would probably choose the Lex and the Magistar, or the Lex and the Boltor, depending if you want the melee weapon more, or if you want the ranged weapon more, right? And then for the final week, I would just like choose the Magistar. It doesn't matter still, because they're all really like big upgrades. So again, if you like a weapon, choose the weapon. But Incarnon modes go burr, and they can drastically change how a weapon does operate, so I understand if people don't want to, right? The next week, for week 4, we had Incarnon Genesis, Torrid, Dual Toxicist, Dual Ecor, Miter, and Atomos Incarnon. I would recommend 100%. These are the ones I've seen the most, and this is when I think the Incarnon weapons started getting like way better and more interesting, right? I would say choose the Torrid and the Atomos Incarnon first. They're really strong, really great, and I love them. They're like beam weapons essentially, and they murk the shit out of everyone. They just do a ton of damage. I love them. The Miter is also really good, as well as the Dual Toxicist. I haven't seen a ton of people talk about the Dual Ecors, but I do think those are good as well. The Miter Incarnon turns into just more bouncing death blades essentially. I haven't seen enough, but I've seen a little bit. Dual Toxicist just become, I think, more explosive and just better, but some people hate them. So Dual Ecor as well are really strong, but it is the melee, so it's the least interesting of the bunch. But hey, you do with that info what you will. Then when you have week 5, you have some good stuff, right? You have the Akbrunt, Soma, Vasto, Nami Solo, and Burstin. In theory, a lot of these weapons should be better than they are. For me, I would say week 1, you probably want to go with something like the Burstin Incarnon and the Vasto, or go with one of the melees. When the Soma Incarnon is fixed up for its mod, maybe you'll want to go for that. But for now, I'd go with like a Burstin for sure, and then the Vasto. Week 2, I would go with like a melee and then the Soma. And then week 3, I would go with a final melee. So again, I'd go Burstin Vasto, then maybe Soma Akbrunt, and then finally Nami Solo. They're all good weapons if you like them, but you know how Incarnon modes can get. They can be really weird. And Soma's still broken with its like Haughty Critica? I don't know, whatever its crit mod is called. I can't quite remember. So the final week right here, oh, it was on Reddit, nice, is week 6 for the Incarnon weapons. As you can see, you have, oh, I can't zoom in that well. Oh well, whatever. Reddit is weird, I guess. You have the Zylok Incarnon, Sabir Incarnon, Dread Incarnon, Despair Incarnon, and Hate Incarnon. I would go, and everyone would probably agree, to grab the Stalker weapons first, and then these 2 weapons here. The Hate Incarnon is really cool, but it has an issue right now, which will get fixed soon on the 7 Crimes of Clairvaux update, where its Incarnon form shoots out little grenades and they stun you. So you need to actually have something like Prime Surefooted on. Well, they don't stun you, they stagger you, whatever you want to call it, right? So that's kind of an issue. All of these are good, so you can get all of them. I would choose to go Dread, Despair, and then Hate, Zylok, and then Sabir. Mainly because the Sabir is a pain in the ass to farm and it costs a lot of resources, but you already have the Hate, so you don't need another melee. But that's the order I would go. You could go Despair, Hate, and then Dread, Zylok, and then Sabir once they fix up the Hate. But all in all of these weapons are really good, and all of them are very strong. So honestly, I would pick up any one of them. And if you hate the Incarnon form, it is what it is. If you want a very specific look at a weapon, I would look up like random YouTube videos looking at the Incarnon form. I think everyone, like Lazar, Brozyme, like everyone I could possibly think of was uploading all their Incarnon videos, and I was way too lazy to farm up Incarnon weapons and like start throwing Forma into them, so I didn't bother. But everyone has their Forma Incarnon build videos out there if you want to take a look at builds and take a look at seeing how the Incarnon form actually works. The only one I bothered making so far is the Torrid, and that's just because I'm a little burnt out on checking out new Warframe weapons, because they all tend to be just the same, but different, right? So, you know, that's Warframe, and that's so far all of the Incarnon. So pick up what you want and tell me what you like the most, because I'm kind of curious. As always, sub-like, check out twitch.tv/Pupsker, YouTube Pupsker, Twitter Pupsker, Instagram PupskerYT, you know, Epic Games creator code Pupsker. There's way too many social medias, and it's making me slowly go insane. So thank you. Cheers, cheers, cheers.